Welcome to the ThinkData podcast in partnership with Dataworks. And on today's show, I am really pleased to welcome Tara Goodmam. Tara is the Vice President of Life Sciences for PointClickCare. Super interesting business because they're a healthcare technology platform that has really been built to support meaningful collaboration and at the same time provide real-time insights at every stage of the patient healthcare journey.
Well, thank you, Alex. It's a pleasure to be here and I appreciate it. And a little bit about me, actually. So my career follows in some ways the drug development product life cycle. So a long time ago, I started out in early bench research, animal models, safety tox, IND enabling. And through my career, moved toward more of the clinical trial phase 2 and 3, and then more recently into the post-market commercial space. But my focus has always been a combination of business strategy, go-to-market, as well as understanding the operations without being an operations expert, but certainly helping with coordination between those different stakeholders. So I started with the data technology space probably about 6 years ago because I saw the opportunity for technology in healthcare. We are an industry with one of the latest adopters in technology. And so really a lot of greenfield, a lot of opportunity, but also a lot of challenges because we're one of the most conservative areas and we are slow to change and really adverse to risk. So it's a fun space. It's hugely impactful. And specifically what brought me to PointClickCare is it's an ideal opportunity from a business point of view, but also from a personal mission point of view. Our life sciences group came out of our corporate company about 4 years ago. We have our own proprietary EHR that has been around over 20 years and is in the majority of the country's long-term care, skilled nursing, post-acute care facilities. So very niche, very specific resident patient population. And our founders said, why are we not using this really interesting, deep depth, longitudinal patient data? So Life Sciences Group was formed, and we obviously de-identify the data. We use the Datavant tokenization. And we now have this huge, immense amount of clean, structured, queryable data for our life science partners, whether it's pharma, biotech, academia, or government, to help really understand this population and look at the aging population, vulnerable population in these long-term care facilities.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I think if you go back 20 or so years when you started on that drug development journey and obviously research, if you look now to the tools, the technology, the access to data, it's, do you think that wholeheartedly kind of changed your journey, I'm guessing? Because obviously drug development was such a heavy labor intensive, manual kind of data crunching role. But now obviously fast forward 20 odd years, do you think things would have ultimately been different?
I mean, it's an interesting observation because there is still a lot of technology that is not necessarily improving processes and making it more complicated. But I think the key thing is that there's more opportunity for improvement in patient access, healthcare, and outcomes as we're aging, all of us, and we're living longer, and we have more complicated disease and healthcare issues. Our healthcare system, especially in the United States, is extraordinarily expensive, disjointed. So ultimately, I think we're capturing more accurate insights in near real time about all of us on our patient journey, and then hopefully moving towards a goal of better and more efficient healthcare delivery. And especially with the PointClickCare population is looking at this population spends about $2 trillion in the healthcare system.
Wow.
And of that is over 20 billion on branded therapies. So and many of them are lagging in access to some of the same cutting edge therapies that some of the other population has access to. So we're really trying to focus on unmet medical need as well as equity and access to care and ultimately improving their quality of life and outcomes. And I think data helps to bridge in all those different silos in the healthcare system and provide those actionable, real-time, evidence-based insights. But it takes a lot to get the data to that point. So using technology and AI and all these other machine learning, natural language processing, trying to get the data into a format that is usable and actionable.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to kind of digging on that in terms of kind of, the AI part, the advanced analytics piece. But for people who may not be in the US, may not understand the kind of terminology of EHR and the fact that, it's a private, medical service, there's $2 trillion you just referenced there. Can you talk me through the journey of kind of, so you've got the data, it's obviously a very smart move. You're seeing all these insights coming through and actually commercializing it. It's obviously the life sciences space is obviously your role, but talk me through the journey. So obviously you're seeing that data, you're seeing the insights. Your focus is primarily within that kind of aging population. What happens at that point? So those life sciences company are procuring that data. Is that then to improve, I suppose, treatments, or is it going to be the whole gambit of that kind of patient journey?
That's a great question, Alex, and somewhat of a complicated answer.
Yeah.
So, the data is what we call real world data or real world evidence collected from actual patients from their electronic health record, but we uphold the highest levels of HIPAA and confidentiality. So, again, all of the patient, any PHI, personal health identifiers, is encrypted. So, it's de identified. And what happens is this data is put into almost like a data lake, and it is structured into different ways. Like, for example, our stakeholders primarily are biopharma companies and also, like I said, academics and government organizations, but they can access the data, whether it's a raw data feed, or even we have dashboards, which are very easy, user friendly. Anyone with any kind of background can access a dashboard, or it can be curated data. So this data use case is across different phases and stages. I think high level, you can use data to potentially improve clinical trials, identify patients, identify sites, track patients against inclusion exclusion criteria, from and also help in just maximize and improve your protocols. That's more on the clinical development side. And then you have medical affairs, which straddles both clinical and post approval, and understanding safety and what's happening with these patients. And then post market approval is everything from seeing how those therapies are either getting to the right patients or not getting to the right patients, or understanding from a pharmaceutical point of view is the market landscaping, what they need to know about the population, market sizing, market opportunity. So it can be used in planning, it can be used in execution, and ultimately, I think all of us here at PointClickCare want to use that data and want to see the data be used to impact access and outcomes for this very specific underrepresented population.
Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? You touched on, obviously, the data lake piece and how all the data is pulling through. And so is your, I suppose, your role at PointClick is obviously to present that obviously insights data to these kind of biotech, pharma companies, life sciences, and say, look, this is what we've seen, these are the trends. So is there, talk me through kind of the advanced analytics and AI play here, because I know everyone talks about artificial intelligence and
Yeah,
advanced analytics, thinking it's the silver bullet that's going to solve every problem.
right.
But it's not. How big a part does kind of advanced analytics and in some regard artificial intelligence play in your product?
Absolutely. So let me actually go back because I want to clarify one point.
Yeah.
And we provide the data, we will do the analytics, but primarily our partners, the pharma companies, are doing the analytics themselves.
Fine.
So
Okay.
we tend to focus more on therapeutic area, disease state.
Yep.
So because we're in a long-term care, we tend to trend in very specific disease states, such as especially central nervous system neurology, disease states, dementia, Alzheimer's,
Yep.
Parkinson's, even major depressive disorders. We also trend high in any cardiovascular. We trend high in metabolic, diabetes, infectious disease, vaccines, things like that. So technically, a lot of our pharma potential clients would be interested in those areas and
Mm.
interested in what's happening. So that's a bit of how we would iterate and connect with the data. But in
Interesting.
terms of so that's the usage of it, and now actually how does the data come to be? Part of AI, and I think AI is this huge buzzword, and not all AI is created equally. Since we're a technology company, our parent company is a technology company, AI has been a part of our fabric from the beginning. And we sort of divided into two kind of worlds. And I'm also going to refer to my notes because it starts getting very technical. But
Fine.
there's the internal path, which is using AI to improve our productivity internally, efficiency of our company, such as Microsoft Copilot and other third-party software.
Yep.
Then the other use for AI is the product path. So it's developing features for use cases for our customers, documentation summary, autocomplete, other different use cases. So I can get into more about the use cases of AI, especially product, because I think that's more interesting. But what is really important to us as a company is responsible AI use.
Yep.
So keeping it reined in, we have a steering committee who's constantly evaluating our use of AI. We have experts on board, both internally and externally, who are involved with the safe adoption of AI. So that's actually a really important aspect of working in AI, is being responsible for the outputs. So, and quality control, of course.
Yeah.
AI, I think, if you've ever heard of hallucinations or some other, AI is still it's a computer, it's a technology. It's not a
Yeah.
human. And so all of it needs to be checked, and it needs to be controlled from a qualitative point of view. I'm not a QC QA expert, but if we're implementing AI programs, we have to make sure we have redundancies to check that quality. So, responsible AI focused on the product as well as internally. But some of our AI products in development, it's exciting because we're really helping value-based care and coordination of care using AI. So, for one example, is improving at our facilities, at our locations, improving staff efficiencies and strengthening the network of care coordination. So, discharge summaries, risk alerts, so that there's a more efficient, seamless coordination of care for whether the residents or patients. And then also, one of the biggest commitments now is value-based care. So using predictive models for patient discharge to the community. So predicting which ones might be discharged to community versus discharged to a hospital. So as you know, a hospital is huge cost, huge burden of care. So these predictive models can actually find red flags before they happen and potentially prevent these type of situations from progressing. And a couple other interesting cases of AI that we're using as well is using AI in documentation. So when a physician is speaking to a patient, they're often taking notes. We have AI in the development stage of where we are summarizing and auto completing these progress notes to aid in the healthcare professionals. So saving a lot of time and also ensuring they capture all the important salient points. And I think the last thing is some other exploratory uses are doing semantic search and cognitive search to enhance the understanding of patient data. So you're seeing this a lot in, especially oncology, is just using all that huge amount of data and being able to search and query it to answer specific healthcare questions. So that's just a high-level summary of how we are using AI here at PointClickCare and also PointClickCare Life Sciences.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Actually, you touched on a couple of really good points there. I think there is still so much nervousness and kind of reluctance to fully commit to AI in health, because on your point, it's a trained model. It's effective. It's artificial. They'd much rather have the validation and kind of diagnosis from a doctor and a human. But actually, what your point's really valid, and obviously what you guys are utilizing well, is to drive efficiencies. It's really to free people's time up, be better at performing analysis quicker, also freeing people up, and especially on the value-based care and accountable care model. Super important, because you want to have the best possible care, but equally you want to get them in and out and treat them whilst keeping that profit line. And that's a really fine line, isn't it? And actually where AI is helping is monitoring that patient journey and making sure that if there is a drop off, why, and what's the best
Right.
treatment course. So yeah, really interesting. And do you think it's probably kind of a finger in the air answer, but do you think AI will become more ingrained into your business as you begun to understand some of the use cases and understand some of the value it brings?
Yes. So I do. I think AI, whether we like it or not, is here because there's
Yeah.
there's just there's just so much upside. I mean, the AI has been incorporated in our own personal phones, our own predictive entertainments, advertising. So I think in a personal level, it's already here. It's coming more and more in all industries, and I think. As a cautionary tale, one thing I do want to emphasize is ensuring accuracy and
Yeah.
not just efficiencies, accuracy, and avoiding, especially in our industry, exposing sensitive information.
Yeah.
So these models have to have rigorous guardrails. And so sometimes the progress is slower in our field because we have these other rate limiting steps. And we need to have it needs to be a necessity of achieving near perfect accuracy in these
Yeah.
training models. So protecting that personal health information and personally identified information. So
Mm.
accuracy in protecting that is really important. But I think there are so many positive benefits along the way in terms of using AI that just the human capabilities are limited. And I think at the end of the day, excuse the cliche, but at the end of the day, yes, we want our facilities to be profitable so they can stay in business and service residents and patients. But I think it's really about helping these patients. They have many comorbidities. Many
Yeah.
of these patients have coexisting conditions. Many of these patients are on 6 or more different medications, and that's not even including over the counter. So if you have more involved oversight, you can prevent some of the contraindications, you can prevent some of the negative consequences, but also I think it helps care coordination with just not just residents and patients but families.
Mm.
Helps the entire ecosystem be involved. So I think used in the right way and ensuring accuracy and protected information can really bring a lot more benefit and improve the healthcare system and improve the outcomes.
Yeah, no, I think you touched on some really interesting points, and it was actually going to be my next question to you around measuring the success of your solution, because there's obviously going to be investment from your client, and they're obviously going to want an ROI for obvious reasons. Obviously, you touched on one part there is the bigger piece here is obviously to provide better care. There's no getting away from it. We want to help people and these patients through their journey, whilst obviously still bringing some value to our customers. How are you presenting the kind of ROI to customers? So how are they measuring the success of this product? Because I guess success and ROI may be two different things.
Right. I mean, it's a complicated question. Success of our corporate company and life sciences
Mm.
obviously is profitability.
Yeah.
But for a corporate company, are our clients renewing subscriptions? Are they buying? Are they expanding? That is a small metric of success. Our group in life sciences is a little harder to capture because we're dealing with such downstream potential benefits. So, I mean, how do you measure success? One case would be a pharma company has a certain therapeutic and finds out that 30% of our population has that indication, and only maybe 5% of them are using that therapy. So if they're able to secure 2, 3, 4% more of that population on that therapy, they improve their bottom line by millions of dollars. And they also improve the patient's ability to have treatment. So I think that's those numbers. I'm actually just making those up, but we actually have some real cases where clients, pharmaceutical companies came in, saw our population, saw because we have all of the subscription, we have all the prescription information, saw the MPI, saw what they were not using or using, and were able to increase their market share. So I think that's a measure of a
Mm,
commercial success, increasing market share. But I also think a measure of clinical success is actually enrolling patients
yeah,
and
yeah,
having, staying within timelines. I mean, ultimately, you want to see positive data of the therapy impact the patient, but that's a little bit out of our hands. But it's more
mm,
so about timeliness, identifying patients, being able to bring some of these healthcare providers into a clinical trial. I think that
yeah,
really timelines and access, something as simple as that. So those are some of the metrics in our life science group, um, that I would
yeah,
say.
yeah. Super interesting, and it's amazing how data and kind of the analytics piece and all this, just the sheer volume of data you're pulling in is obviously giving them access to provide obviously the better care. It's yeah, and I'm noticing from the space that we operate in, which is within health tech, is there's a lot of organizations or companies, spin-offs. I know you're part of a larger business that's a tech firm who are trying to capitalize on the availability of data, whether it was the real
Mm,
world evidence or just utilizing AI to like workflow automation, revenue cycle management. But
yeah,
so you're in a competitive space, and I know this is really why you've been brought in, but how are you standing out? So what steps are you, because it's obviously competitive. You're trying to break into the large pharma companies, biotech, life sciences companies that are probably being prospected all the time. But what are you doing to kind of stand out?
great question, actually, and it's an easy one. I like this question
Yeah.
because we don't really have a competitor. There is no other information like ours in the industry for a couple reasons. First of all, it's our proprietary EHR, and of all these types of facilities with these types of residents and patients, we're in over 70 to 80% of them in the country. So we have the majority of the market share. And so this data, there is no other company that has this level of data, this level of detail on this specific population. So we're
Mm,
a very niche, specific, focused organization. We're not one size fits all. We're more of a scalpel. Some of our other companies, like for example, Acuvia is much more of a generalist, and some
mm,
of their data, they model it. It's not always in near real time. So our data is near real time, and we're also mandated by CMS, which is our government health insurance management for Medicare, Medicaid. We're mandated to collect within each patient what's called the MDS, minimum data set. And that's a structured, uniform amount of data upon intake, upon any major change, usually about quarterly in long term care, where we already have this data within all of our other data. So
yeah.
we, on average, have about 30 data points collected per day, everything from daily vitals, activities of daily living. We have quality of life measures. We have even social determinants of health, of course, like diagnoses, treatments, medications over the counter. And so it's the full picture of the patient. So I would say, to answer your question directly, what we stand out is, number one, there is no other company that's really exactly the same that has this data, this level on this population. And number two, where we see sort of a crowded space is not so much about what our data is, it's just getting the attention
Yeah.
of our stakeholders. It's getting the attention, it's getting the time, and most importantly, it's getting them to care about this population. The fact is, our aging population, our long term care population in this country is growing. In the next 10, 20 years, it's going to more than double. And it has often been disregarded in the life science industry and not
Mm,
really given a lot of time and energy. So I think it's important to help our life science partners understand the business opportunity, the millions of dollars that they can certainly help make, but also to understand the huge opportunity and how easy it is to we bridge the silos. So really understanding what's going on in this population. Historically, there has been no other lens into what's happening. And so for the first time, we're opening up, there's a lens into this population. We can really understand some of these complicated disease areas. We can really understand what's happening in a very controlled state because it's somewhat of an institutional situation, and helping educate them about the opportunity and the potential. So I think it's a lot about educating. It's a lot about once they come to the table per se and actually play with the data. It's not a hard argument to convince. It's getting the attention in a
Yeah.
very busy, crowded space. And it's also, you're competing for budget dollars, right? So, I mean, companies have a limited amount of budget dollars to spend on, actual real world data. And it's trying to get them to care in general about aging and long-term care patients.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about being in a niche. I think if you really kind of can own that space, you understand the
Right.
nuances of it, you have the data, the experience, the kind of battle scars to kind of support
Mhm.
what you're saying. I think a lot of those companies come in and try and be everything to everyone. But
Right.
actually, was it always? I'm guessing from Point Click Care, the tech business behind you, that's always been their space, is the aging population. So it was a natural
Right.
transition for you to focus specifically within that.
Absolutely. Yes. So, I mean, our corporate parent company started with the proprietary EHR specifically for this population. So, as a result, we've been collecting probably over about 10 years longitudinal patient data from our proprietary EHR. So, it was natural just to continue to focus on this because that's we own the data. We can manipulate the data. And interestingly enough, if a patient is interested in being onboarded onto a trial, once we consent the patient, we can actually re-identify them. So we have that kind of reciprocal relationship too with the data because of our very unique position with it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a smart move and owning that space. And as you said, the challenge about being noticed, but if you're the only one doing it and with that access to data, then it's probably easier to be noticed. Not easy, but easier.
Uh, Absolutely, it is easier to be noticed. And I think the last thing too, and I don't want to be redundant, but EHRs historically have been really messy and hard to deal with, and
Yeah,
a lot of users, data scientists, analytics people are a bit remiss in working with an EHR. I think one of our other value add is that because we created it, our name Point Click Care, literally you point click down and you don't have as many fields. It's everything is already there for you. It's already clean, it's already queryable, it's already structured. So it doesn't leave the level of ambiguity and messiness that a lot of other data sources or EHRs provide. So we any user can access the data. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a technical person.
yeah, no, I like that. And yeah, final question for you is that, I know you've joined to obviously build this, and what's next? What can the next kind of 6-12 months look like for you?
Grow. Well, I think a lot of it, it's not just about the revenue. It's partners. It's finding ways we can work with other companies in our space to improve information, to improve sharing, to improve data technology and data integration. We're actually have an upcoming webinar, I think, after the summer with a company where they have a technology that captures history of data from the patient. So we're looking at different integrations, almost marriages per se, that
Yeah,
ultimately affect and help the information and affect and impact the use case to really drive clinical decision making. So I think what's next is we'd like to get to a point with our data where we can really help clinical decision making in near real time. So I think just continuing to be innovative, continuing to help educate the public, our life science partners, what is out there, what the potential is. And the one thing, especially in the clinical space, I think a lot of our clinical people are very hesitant about new technology. So, really helping people be comfortable as they transition and move into this new technology age.
yeah, no, thank you. That's a great way to end. So it's been my absolute pleasure to have you on, and I'll make sure that I'm sure there'll be some kind of case studies and use cases people can look at on your website. I'll make sure that we tag
Absolutely.
the episode in here, and obviously everyone who's listening, check Tara out, and obviously look at PointClickCare. It's a really interesting business and doing some great work with, obviously data is kind of central to all of that. So yeah, thanks for coming on. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been great being a guest on your podcast.
Thanks, Tara.